Welcome to the Soulful Sound podcast. This podcast is about celebrating the leaders, teachers, and coaches who guide fellow humans to connect, heal, and discover themselves so they can express their gifts into the world. I am Simone Niles, a coach, sound healer, vocalist, and author. Thank you for being here with me today. And I am back for another amazing episode with this beautiful soul. I am joined by Bill Phillips, who is a psychic medium and the author of Expect the Unexpected, Signs from the Other Side, and most recently, Soul Searching, Tune into Spirit and Awaken Your Inner Wisdom. His life's mission is to help people to deal with grief of losing loved ones by bringing through validations, evidential information, and beautiful messages from spirit, which heal and bring a sense of peace. He conducts individual and small and large group readings and has appeared on high-profile television programs like Dr. Phil and Access Hollywood. Yeah, welcome, Bill. So lovely to have you with me today.
Oh, so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Well, I really like to start asking my guests pretty much the first thing that comes up for me is how you got into the work that you do. So as a psychic medium, is there a particular story of how you either recognized or realized that gift?
Yes, I can definitely say that growing up when I was a child, I did not have on my list of things to do growing up to be a psychic medium. It's one of those things that definitely found me and called to me.
Mm,
And I'm remembering back as early as my early childhood, actually, having different experiences. Primarily at night, actually, was the strongest of those experiences. Seeing faces around me, the mouths moving, not knowing what on earth to make of it.
yeah.
My mother telling me I had a very strong imagination. And then that led into a really interesting time on my journey of my parents both sort of fighting over me in this custody thing, going back and forth, and them having their own struggles in life. So long story short, when I was 6 years old, my mom took me from California to New York for 3 years, and it was a very challenging time for us.
Mm,
I think that during those moments, I really learned about resilience, and how to protect myself and shield myself as a child,
yeah.
as a 7, 8 year old. So it really began back then. And then flash forward to when I was almost 15, my mother passed away unexpectedly, and I was able to see her after almost 6 years by her bedside. And in that moment, I thought my life was completely, over. But a few nights later, I woke up to her in the room with me. And that in itself was life changing. Of course,
Mm.
there were so many questions, and there was so much, just uncertainty around my experience that I kept diving deeper and deeper into this connection.
Do you feel called to use your voice and sound in a healing capacity? Learn how to use your voice therapeutically to facilitate healing and well-being. Whether you want to go deeper in your own healing journey or facilitate others in theirs, this training is for you. This online training runs over 5 weekends and offers theory, practice, resources, and support on your path to becoming a qualified sound healer and for your personal healing journey.
This connection and into the awareness of the other side and spirit.
Yeah.
And so, it really had a way of really following me. And once I listened and once I answered the call, the rest was basically history.
Mm. Yes, I love how you put that answer the call because I often talk about even just your calling in life and whatever that feels like. It's sometimes it's a whisper, sometimes it's a blaring siren, but that's the first part is to hear it. But listening to it and then acting upon it is the next steps, right? So I love that. And I've spoken to many people with amazing and incredible gifts like yours, and it's always so interesting whether it's the commonalities that come come through, which is noticing something through the senses in a really profound way. But also, there's an element of trusting that. And that comes at different points, right? Because I know some people have been like, am I crazy? What's going on? You know, does anyone else see this? But for you, you just kind of sensed into that because for you, it was obvious you saw your mother, right? So it wasn't just, I don't know who this person is. So that's a beautiful connection straight away.
Yeah, and absolutely. And even before that time too, being a child, and I always say that when we are opening up to our spirituality and our spiritual gifts, it usually has a heartbreak, in association with it, or a trauma in association with it. That's how we were able to break free of this sort
Yeah.
of human conditioning. And so
Yes.
for me, that began in my childhood through having a pretty crazy dramatic childhood. So
Mm,
I had to learn how to really go within. And
mhm,
what I found was with going within, I was surrounded with this force field of energy.
mm,
As a child, I didn't really know what to label it as such, but I know that what I was experiencing was the white light of spirit. And so this was something that became very regimented into my being because I had no choice but to go within. And so
yeah.
I feel like it was a great gift that came in the darkest moments of my life, actually.
Mm,
And
mm,
I really do believe that that's the case with everyone here right now on this earth, is that there's going to be, a moment of breaking point. And it's
yeah.
with that breaking point that there's an awareness that comes from it. And you
Mm,
can't go backwards. You can only go forward with that newfound awareness and
yes.
knowledge.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I completely relate to that. And, it's when we're in that dark night of the soul or those really heartbreaking moments, it's not always to see easy to see the gems in that moment. Often it's in hindsight when we've learned or expanded or grown or whatever that might be. I know for me recently, and I love some of the things that you talk about in your book, I would say that I've been through quite a radical shift and expansion in myself, which came through that like cracking open experience. And all I could do was go into gratitude because while I didn't quite understand what was behind all of that, I just thought, I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful for whatever it is that's coming through this pain. My mom always used to say, and I'm sure it's not hers, but that God breaks your heart so he can shine his light through it. And I completely related to that. I was like, you're so right. Let the light shine, but this hurts.
So,
Definitely.
so true. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful. So I have another question. It's a bit twofold. I think I'll start with the other side of it first, which is what is your description of higher self? Because you talk about the higher self a lot, and I want to know about more about that. But let's start with letting people know what that is for you.
Absolutely. So the higher self for me is my all-knowing self. It's my spirit self. It's sort of like the unconscious part of myself that's really dictating my journey and guiding me on that journey. So I like to consider myself a channel of light or a channel for spirit, right? And so
Mm,
I think of my higher self as an extension of that channel of light that's kind of just keeping an eye on me, watching
mm,
when I choose to tune into it on a conscious level, that's where this wisdom comes from, or that's where these downloads occur.
yes,
And
yes,
the great thing about this is that we all have a higher self. That's why
yes.
we've all chosen to come into this life experience. So when you're able to really view life in that context of having a higher evolved self, then you're able
Hmm.
to really see the challenges of life in a different light. And you're able to
Yes.
see that you're not really a victim of life, but rather you've signed up to have these lessons to evolve
Hmm.
on your journey of life.
That's amazing. And so you talk about when you're connecting to this higher self that really helps us to navigate and flourish in this world right now that is becoming quite complex. So talk a little bit about that. How does that work in your opinion? How does that evolve?
Well, it all goes down to intuition, and it all goes down to learning how to create this language within ourselves. Everything
Mm,
goes down to our own language. And so
yes.
I find that when someone's discovering their intuitive self or their higher self, rather, they're understanding that it's a different language than they speak in their regular everyday life.
Mhm.
A lot of the
Mhm.
time it's feeling based, but it's also symbolic based as well. A lot of
Yeah.
symbols, a lot of just kind of charades that we're receiving, puzzle pieces rather, that we have to have the awareness of going within and kind of
Mm.
connecting that data together to make informed decisions. So
Yes.
I really believe that it just comes down to being present, because in the present moment, that's where everything connects with us,
Mhm.
just naturally, organically as well. But as the world continues to become chaotic here down here in the Earth plane, which it is
Yeah.
rapidly right now, um,
Yes.
one thing that I have found to be true is that when we're connecting with our higher self, when we're going within and disconnecting from the physical world around us, there is something magical that happens in those moments where we're able to transcend the fear or
Yeah.
transcend the ego space, the space that kind of wants to create this pattern within our minds. And
Mhm.
when we're able to go above that way of thinking and being, I find that the world around us just becomes way more enjoyable and way more vivid and way more
Mhm.
just synchronistic by going to that sweet spot that we all have access to.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I'm going to ask you this question because I know that looking at some of the information in your book that you're sharing so beautifully, very practical exercises as well as your own story and everything like that, that you talk a lot about going into the stillness. And I know that a lot of people have different ways of doing that. So I feel very blessed that from the age of 6, I started a meditation practice. So meditation for me is my go-to. And then, of course, there's prayer. So, what is the difference for you between meditation and prayer, if there is one?
Well, there definitely is, but in essence, you're connecting with your higher power both ways. I
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
that praying is really starting the dialogue. It's speaking to the universe, speaking to
Mhm.
spirit, speaking to your higher self. And meditation is when you're in that stillness, being able to receive that guidance. So one
Mm,
way is placing the call through prayer, and answering the call is through meditation.
that's a beautiful way. I've not heard it that way before. That's quite interesting. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do you feel then that both are needed?
I believe that they are innate in all of us, that we're supposed to use them while we're here on our spiritual journey. And so, for people that are awakening to that way of being, at first it can feel a little bit, foreign or a little bit scary, like, wait, what? All I have to do is pray and then meditate and everything's going to be solved for me? No, not quite. But it is sort of a threshold, though, of
Mm,
accessing that deeper level of who you are and going deep within that self, connecting you to the knowledge that you are exactly where you're supposed to be in this moment, right?
yeah, yes. Yeah, it offers a place to surrender, right? Especially when things are uncertain, which life, happens to be very often. So, yeah, it offers a place to surrender, whether it's higher self, universe, God, whatever people, whatever words we choose to use. It's knowing that there is something greater and beyond us that we can surrender to. And I love that. I mean, I relate. And it's interesting. I like that nuance between the two, the call and then the space to answer it or to hear the answer and then take what you will from that.
Yeah, and something too that really helped me on my journey was, unbeknownst to me, before all of this really was taking place, I was going to school to be an opera singer. Actually, I was
Amazing.
a musician, and what I found was that there was a really strong correlation between music and spirituality, and
Mm,
not only that, but also the vibration of sound as well, and how that vibration could manipulate the energy around us. To sort of
yeah.
a stagnant energy, or maybe as a way to tune into a vibration or the stillness that you wouldn't have access to without that reference point of sound around you. So
Mm,
for me, singing and music and even listening to music as well became that door opening for me to that stillness within. And that has evolved since that time over the past few decades as well. So
That is
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, you are speaking my language as I'm a sound healer, and that's all the work that I do, all about sound and voice and energy and vibration and frequency. And oh, yes, you're speaking my language. And a lot of my own personal challenges were healed through sounding or singing, and a lot of stuff, even when I was younger and I didn't quite know that sitting in the tree after school when I was like 10 or something, every day I would come home, it kind of became a daily ritual of just lying back on this tree and singing my heart out and hearing the waves of the sea that wasn't so far in the distance and seeing above all the houses. And, that was so profound. And I think it saved me a lot because it really became something that I felt so connected, one to the higher self, but also to source. I happen to be in nature and connected to the tree, the strength of that branch beneath me and the energy of the tree and the nature, so profound. And I can say that in hindsight, when I was doing it, like you said, these things are sometimes very innate or natural. I didn't go, let me go into the tree and sing so I can feel better. But it definitely was my way into to sound in a way that obviously now I can see why.
Absolutely. And I find that when we get out of the way and make things simple for ourselves, our
Mm,
higher self and our bodies even too, they know what they have to do to heal themselves,
yes.
and our soul knows what needs to happen to ground ourselves. And we're so blessed
Mm,
to live in this universe and on this earth with so many opportunities to connect with Mother Earth, to
yeah.
connect with nature, even just something as simplistic as the sunrise and the
Mm,
sunset are one of the most priceless gifts that we get to experience every day to
yes.
show ourselves where we're at in the universe and the fact that there's so much hope for new beginnings every day that we're here.
Mm. Gratitude for the beautiful things that we have at our fingertips. So I know with your book, it's soul searching. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about, because I don't think I've heard it this way before, and I'm really curious about your way, it's like you talk about the role of the inner child. So what does the role of our inner child play in our, well, I guess our search for soul, for our soul?
Our inner child is very impressionable. It's the most purest version of ourselves. And
Mm,
I really know that our inner child is the pin light that entered our body in the first place. It was that just unlimited light source that we come from.
yeah.
And when we're here as children, I believe it's everyone's journey as well. And it will be unique to each person's journey too. But what happens is that we're so impressionable as children, yet we enter this world so open and so connected to the
Mm,
universe, to spirit, to the invisible world. And
mm-hmm.
that becomes our safety, right? And then there's a programming that happens somewhere along the ages of 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Somebody that we put our trust into programs something that goes against all of our inner knowing in those
Yes.
moments.
Yes. Yes.
And then what happens is that because we are so impressionable, we begin to believe the new command. So flash forward on our adult trajectories,
Mm-hmm.
when we're having these awakenings too, and it really just sort of makes us go back within and re-question everything in our lives to that point, and makes us go, so I wasn't crazy when I was having those experiences as a child that
Yeah.
every single one of us have experienced,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, when you think of it yourself in those terms of your pin light being connected to your inner child, then you know that that inner child is something that is so important to protect on your physical journey. It's something that we all have access to going back to and communicating with our inner child.
Yeah.
Therefore, the threshold is we are communicating with our all-knowing self via our inner child. So inner
Mm.
child is something that I feel when we nurture it and when we're really doing the inner work, we're giving back to ourselves, and we have to give back to ourselves to be of service to the world around us. And
Yes.
we're all here on some level to be of service. We've all signed up for that.
Mm. Mm. So I know that you have exercises in your book. Is there one tip that you can give right now for someone who says, well, how can I kind of just even reconnect with my inner child? Is there anything that you can share on that for this piece?
Absolutely. I would absolutely recommend sitting in meditation, finding the stillness, which again can just be as simple as maybe 5 minutes of just focusing on your breath, rising above the mind chatter, rising above the ego space. And then once you're there, going within, visualizing something to you that reminds you of your childhood,
Mm,
primarily something that has more of a positive association to it, but let's just say that there's not, and there's a lot of healing that still is in progress. To still go back to that place, to see yourself there in hindsight as your adult self, and to
mm,
be able to show that inner child how loved they are, and also not only that, how they're going to be okay, how they're going to
mm.
thrive, to give them that confidence boost, to give them that support and that reassurance.
Yes,
It's
yes.
so important.
Yeah, and quite simple to do in an exercise, but so profound. I love that. I mean, I have practices of not necessarily just going back to my inner child, but even just a younger version of myself. Like when I was moving between relationships and thinking, okay, what's next? What do I want? I've evolved. What do I want to attract now? And all of this. I sometimes go back to the 20 whatever year version of myself and grieve the things that I thought was the best for me and say thank you, but I've got us, I've got you now, and we can step forward together, and with this, all of this experience and this knowing of what the possibilities that lie ahead. So I really relate to those, whether it's inner child or the younger version, or we can also future pace and talk to our future selves in such a beautiful way. I think these practices are so beautiful and can offer so much.
And they're so simplistic because they're designed to be a part of who we already are. And as,
Yeah.
as you were stating so beautifully earlier, these are these practices that you were led to do subconsciously.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's something really important there in that message about when we really do make life more simple and get out of the complexity of our rational side of ourselves.
Yeah.
And even if we just sit in that stillness or sit in the light, there is for sure a transmutation happening in those moments. There is an evolution
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we have to kind of quiet down the part that wants to control it all. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's beautiful. So I guess this could be a good segue because I just spoke about relationships, at least me moving between relationships. So I know that you talk about it being how letting go of, let's say, toxic relationships, how important that is towards living the life that we desire. So first, let's just describe what a toxic relationship is, and then tell me about that. Why is letting go of that really, an important part of living what we really desire?
I love this question. So, a toxic relationship is one in which the other party is so stuck in their own low negative vibration space that they don't know any other way. And everyone that they pull into their orbit, they're affecting them on that low vibrational space. They're,
Mm,
there's not really an awareness to break free of that energy source. So a
right.
lot of times this will show up for people as unhealed part of their childhoods. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is it's always the age-old saying about marrying your parents, you know what I
right.
mean? And,
Yeah.
and going back within and going like, oh, all of this stuff that made me feel so, worthless, let's just say, as a child or in my adolescence, is showing up for me again right now. So I believe that those relationships serve a purpose, but they have an expiration date though. So
Yeah, right.
all come here to learn with them. So I really do know that they are teachers to us. But at a certain point, though, if on their soul level, they're not willing to break free of that way of being and evolve with us, then
Hmm.
there has to be another road that forms for us, like a fork in the road. And
Yeah.
always the most challenging thing, typically when it's someone that we love with every ounce of our being. And we know that we may not experience love like that again, in our lives. But we also know that the love is in the giving to them, and that giving is setting them free. And
Mm.
by setting them free, we're also releasing the shackles from ourselves as well.
Mm, mm. So, on that, because I'm sure a lot of people listening will be able to relate, whether it's current, past, or anything like that in their lives, right? And so, what advice would you give to people who are having a hard time letting go of whether it's other people, places, or things that are no longer serving them? And let's go with that first, that analogy that you gave, that example that you gave, which is the relationship's great. You love the person, it's beautiful, but you still know it's not for you anymore. Because I think a lot of people might be able to see, okay, they need the advice anyway, but if it's really bad, it might feel easier to leave than when it appears to be beautiful and great, but it's still not serving you, right? Talk to me about that.
Yes, again, it all goes back to having that higher awareness of our lives, and that higher spiritual perspective. And I would encourage anyone who's in that space right now where they really feel like they are stuck or they're at their bottom, or maybe they've just made the decision to leave this relationship behind and they're grieving it still at the moment.
Yeah.
I would encourage them to really try to go rise above the bad parts of us for a moment, or what we perceive to be bad, and try to see where the gifts lie in that relationship. Maybe it was something where this person empowered you to
Mm,
say no and to have your own personal boundaries. A lot
yeah.
of times, that's what these relationships are there to serve for us. It's to basically help us access our own power that we have from within. So,
Mm, mm.
and then, like you were saying earlier too, gratitude is a very simple approach, but it's also very powerful as
Yeah.
well because
Mm,
it just attracts more of that energy to it. So I would go through and write down, a list of things that you were grateful for within that relationship. And
mm.
maybe it's something as simple as knowing that you had the courage all along to own your voice and to own your power on your journey. And that is something that is huge.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I love that, owning your power. It's for me, a lot of the relationships that I've had that I've left knowing it's no longer serving me was very much about my self-worth, teaching me about how worthy I am. And that was I mean, it is a beautiful lesson. And the more I step into that, the more I know, okay, well, this is something new. This is what I'm attracting now. That's reflecting the frequency and vibration of what I'm now, emitting, let's say. So the question I have, because I would also say that not in all my relationships, but certainly my more mature life partner relationships, I've been very fortunate to cultivate a conscious uncoupling. So most of the time, once we knew it was over, we still spent time loving each other out of the relationship. I know that that's not the norm, but I really find that that's a beautiful way to step into forgiveness. So you also talk about forgiveness, and I like this because I think there are a lot of people going through the hard times who'll be like, yeah, but they did, I know I did, or this happened, and I can't forgive this, or all of the things that we can sometimes carry, which we can also put down, but we sometimes carry. What would you say about forgiveness, being that you say in your book that it doesn't equate to exoneration, which I love. And so why is forgiveness so important? And talk to those pieces a little bit for us.
Yes, forgiveness is something that literally just frees us up. It frees up our energy. It disconnects our energy cords, rather, to situations that no longer serve us on our journey. And
Mm,
when we're coming from the safe part of our being, that the ego space, or what I refer to
mhm,
as the ego voice within, it always wants to find blame, and it always wants to, point fingers, and it wants to make you feel the safety net of the victimhood and being in that victim mentality. And so, again, when we go into our higher knowing and step
mm,
into our higher knowing, with any practice that we might cultivate in our daily lives, that practice brings us to an awareness that shows us what is ego-based and what is love-based. And
Yes.
again, I know it sounds very simple, but it's true though. When we come from the space of not taking those actions personally, but really recognizing them as a lesson plan that our soul signed up for, I
Yeah.
really do believe that it takes that pressure off of ourselves, and it
Mhm.
makes us know that we are in the school of life right now, and we are passing our exams at the moment. And
Yeah.
this happened to be the exam, and the pop quiz was forgiveness, and we and
Mm.
we we
I
passed
love
that
that.
pop quiz, and because of that, and we forgave, we actually created more space within ourselves to
Mm.
let people in on this new journey. So I believe that we enter this life with a soul group, different souls that we've traveled with through the lifetimes.
For sure.
They're
Yeah.
not all blood family. A lot of times they are, people that have come to hurt us, love us, heal us, but
Mhm, mhm.
they're all surrounding us. And because we are so powerful and we are these co-creators on our journey, we really do have the power to make space to let different souls in on that journey that vibrate with our frequency or vibrate with our
Yeah.
intention. So
Yes.
I know, and I've seen it through a lot of clients' lives and friends' lives as well, is once they've learned the lesson and they're able to lovingly put that person behind their heart, but they're able to move forward as well,
Mm.
they're attracting people to them that are championing them. And these
Yeah.
people are showing them their true nature and what they're capable of and their
Yeah.
true potential. And I think that there's so much beauty in empowerment when you find your tribe.
Yes. Yes, for sure. I think it all comes down to that vibration and frequency, right? Of what and then we evolve and that changes as well. I've had quite a few clients who grieve losing friends because they've expanded or they've grown and their friends haven't. And, in a way, not a toxic relationship, but you can't bring someone with you. They have to do the work themselves. And I think the way you've just described it, for me, it's a lesson that I think I'm so blessed to have been taught this very young. And I think if there's one thing that I hope that my kids, I have three beautiful children, that they know now is that you are responsible for your own stuff, but equally important to know when it's not yours. And also that choice piece, which is I can choose to feel badly about this. And I come to points in my life when I feel bad, I go, okay, I give you 5 more minutes to wallow in this, Simone. Then come on, just, because I know that there is something that can be done from moment to moment. We're always one breath away from a new reality. And so I love that you speak about forgiveness, where it's about freeing you up. And there is something very freeing knowing that you're only responsible for your own stuff. So you're not, and you're also choosing, as you said, the experience. So you're not a victim to circumstance. I think there is definitely a difference between a victimization experience but then a victim mindset, what you do with it after the experience. So for you, having, like you said, quite hard childhood and all the things that you did, you already can see the gems and the beauty that came out of those experiences, rather than saying, "Poor me, I'm going to stay here because this is the hand I was dealt." It's okay. I chose this for my soul to grow. So hey, let's grow.
Absolutely. And I find that when we each go through our own awakening, what it really shows us is to have compassion for each other too, that
Yeah,
we're all here on this journey together. We're all
yeah,
going
yeah,
through something that we can relate to. And there's so much power in that connection. And when we think about all of us being one together on this journey, it takes away that separation illusion that our
hmm,
ego wants us to believe is true and real. And when we vibrate in that illusion of separation, that's where all of the earthbound feelings creep in. The earthbound feelings of anger, resentment, fear, doubt, all of these low vibrational energies that are there
yeah,
for a purpose, for survival, and that's really it. So
Yeah.
it's really about knowing that we have all of these facets of energy that we have access to, but to really know that we all have the ability to tune in to the channel that we want to perceive and receive.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that really is, it's not magical thinking, it's just it's our truest nature. And when we go into that space, we start to see the evidence of it showing up around us because we're
Yes.
vibrating at that level.
Yes. Yes. That's beautiful. I like that you use the word that that's for our survival. So it's something that we can't avoid, or, I mean, because it's how we survive, or would you say there is a better way to survive?
There's definitely, we came into this body form eons ago, and that part of our consciousness has kind of has grown with us over time. And so
Mm.
when we're able to see it for what it is, and we're
Yeah.
able to think of this mentality of that was then, this is now,
Mm.
this is not who I am. This is a part of my DNA that has traveled with me over lifetimes, then you're able to compartmentalize it and you're
Yeah.
able to kind of put it in its place. And having that sense of power also works with surrender as well, because we're surrendering everything around us that we don't have control over to
Yeah.
find our own source of control, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I mean, surrendering is definitely a big part of it all, but I think then when we surrender, there is a sense of what are we allowing? So that for me, I completely relate. I love that. There's a question that just popped up, and before I forget it, because it's not one that I thought to ask, but I feel like it would be really interesting. As a psychic medium, for you, how easy is it to go into that space to have that connection with spirit and do the work that you do? Does it feel like a snap now, or is there a lot of preparation that you feel you still need to go through? Tell me a bit about where you are in that journey.
I find that when I feel that I have to prep for it, that's my ego space taking over, and
Yeah, okay,
my
gotcha.
mind trying to tell me that I have to try hard to accomplish something.
Right, got
Um,
you.
what I've really come to cultivate within my own practice actually is having boundaries with spirit as well. And what I've come to know, because in the beginning of this journey for me, as a teenager, I had trouble sleeping at night because I all I could hear were them calling my name out, and I couldn't sleep. And I didn't know what to really do with it. So as I grew it, as I evolved over time and learned, what I learned was most important for me was when I'm not being a messenger for somebody else, having my own peace and my own sanity on my own human journey, because
Yeah.
otherwise I'm always in that space of energy, and we're not supposed to exist there 24/7. We're
Yes,
we're supposed
exactly.
to kind of walk the tightrope between those two worlds of ourselves.
Mm,
So,
mm.
so to answer that question, it really for me begins with intention. So when I begin doing my readings for people throughout the day, I will spend a few minutes in that space of intention,
Yes.
calling on the energy, raising the vibration, and
Mm.
just asking for a healing to happen throughout my day. And then
Yes.
releasing that intention is what's so paramount in having that energy match up with my intention as well, is surrendering it. So um but just basically knowing how vibration works, and I think it goes back again to my musical journey as a
Hmm.
younger person too. I was able to figure out what the different levels of spirit were, and how if I used sound or even within to create my own sound to raise my vibration,
Yeah.
um, there was different levels of spirit that I was connecting with. I was either connecting with guides that were around somebody, or if I focused my intent a little bit lower around their aura space, I was allowing souls that were directly connected to them
Yeah.
to come through. So it's all about knowing how energy works and knowing how
Hmm.
vibration works, and how when you have that aha moment, and you have that knowledge, no one can take that away from you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that sense, it really is a split second of thought transformation to enter that space.
Right. I love that. And it's interesting because the way you described it, I relate to from my sound healing practice, but I never thought of it in the same way, which is it's all about setting the intention and then getting out the way for sound to come through you in whatever way it's needed for someone's highest good. And that's not about what you think they need. It's what they need and they don't necessarily even know. But you talk about the intention, which is a really huge part because it's actually intention plus frequency or sound that brings the healing. Not that it can't be healing if the intention is not. Well, actually, I think the intention is what makes it healing because we know we can listen to a lot of sounds. And the moment we go into that space of this is what this is helpful for, this is what I want to listen to it for, it changes the experience. So I completely relate to that. And it's interesting you spoke about boundaries because when I was really young, my mom always used to say to me that I traveled a lot. I grew up in a very spiritual background. My mom studied metaphysics, and she used to say, "You need to sleep more. You travel a lot in your sleep." And it's only in the last couple of years, speaking to some of my colleagues and people who have different gifts, that someone said, "You know, you could actually tell spirit to leave you alone at night, right?" And I was like, "Oh." Took you long enough to figure that one out, that you can actually say, "Can you let me sleep? I'll heal. I'll go on the healing journey another time." And it really changed my sleep. So when you said that, I was like, yeah, I got that a bit late, but yes, that completely makes sense to me.
And it's such a simple truth, but when we're entering that awakening and we don't really know how it works yet, we don't think to know that we're in control of that journey, or
Yeah,
or
yeah.
our voice matters the most. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
exactly. Exactly. That's so beautiful. So
And
tell us about the spiritual web that you write about in your book.
it all goes back to these different levels of spirit energy that are around us, and how, again, we're interwoven in this fabric of universal space with our spirit team. So I go into talking about, not just our loved ones that we knew in life being in spirit. That's just one level, actually, of the web that we make up. We
Mm,
also have guides that were, sent to us to learn certain lessons too on our journey. We have the ascended masters energy too that we have access
mm,
to when we want to liberate ourselves, or find that inner wisdom. We have the angels too, the archangels, the ones that
mm,
were never in physical human form. They're very high in light and vibration, but they
yeah,
also make up that web for us too. So it's all about when we go into our heart space, and we visualize how everything connects in the heart space together. That is the same space that we're connecting with spirit around us as well. So they are, in essence,
mm,
a part of our orbit. They're part of our orbit.
mm,
And they are there a lot, in the background silently for us, but we
mhm.
know that when life happens, or we see miracles in our lives in the most interesting of ways, that they're behind those miracles. They're the ones laying it down for us. So when we give them the validation as well, like, "Hey, thanks guys, I couldn't have done this without you today, I really appreciate your
Yes,
help,"
yes,
then they will continue to give you signs as well.
yeah.
Um, and I love that so much, because it absolutely helps us have that reassurance in the physical world that we are being assisted and we are being watched over,
Yeah.
especially when we give them permission to meet us halfway on that journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I've found in my own journey with connecting to spirit and my intuition and all of this that it really is about building this relationship. Because as you said, they're always in the orbit, they're always there. But when you build a relationship, you open a two-way, you're like channel to that. It's not that it's not possible to be protected and cared for and guided without that connection, but I personally find how much more liberating and it is, and also even more connected to myself because of it, right? Understanding, as you said, about the separate, not having that separation. It's like there's so much available, there's so many resources available to us that we don't tap into. And I'm always so grateful when I have those experiences because I just feel like, yes, this is what life is about.
It really is. It's exactly what life's about. And when we're able to really understand how our language affects our life in general, it even goes down to, the music that we listen to or the lyrics, or it goes
Mm.
down to the programming that we watch as well.
Yeah.
Everything that we're perceiving, we're downloading into our subconscious, and that will affect
Yes.
us on our everyday life. So
Yeah.
it's just really important that we feed that language with uplifting messages, and
Yes.
supporting mantras and things like that are going to uplift us.
Hmm.
And in doing so, and this is why I love my gratitude practice as well. Gratitude is something that is innate in all of us,
Yes.
and we can all spend a moment to just think of one thing right now that we're grateful for, like
Mm.
just being alive in this moment, in this physical experience. And what that does is we're giving our attention and our energy over to the spirit part of our being and to our higher self. And in doing
Oh,
that,
yeah.
we are so beautifully disconnecting from that ego space within.
Mm.
And in that space, that's where we're all able to connect with the other side.
Yeah, that is beautiful. So in that moment, I had this, oh, I'm so grateful for having conversations like this because I just light up when I feel like souls are talking and really connecting deeply, even though I know there's language, there's questions, there's stuff on the surface. There is a difference. And I know people, I mean, you can feel my energy. I can feel your energy. There is that connection that happens that where words don't even need to be spoken. And for me, this is what this whole podcast and platform offers for me. So I'm always grateful when I'm sitting in front of someone else and having these enlightened and beautiful conversations. It's the conversations I love to have for sure.
Same, I'm right there with you, and
Yeah.
it's reminding me. I've had the privilege for the past several years, actually, of teaching workshops and leading workshops. And what I find is that during these moments together, we're all so connected, and we're all so vibing so high, and we're in this other space, you
Mm.
know. And the guidance that I always get upon closing these weekends together is that this energy source, this feeling right now, hold on to it. Take a mental snapshot of what it feels and looks like, because
Mm.
when you leave this experience, there's going to be someone that shows up for you as a test to see if they can break that energy, or to see if maybe they can
Yes.
get you back down into the space
Mm.
of fear and doubt. And so it really just goes back to knowing that everything that we imprint, we have access to. When we are allowing ourselves to conjure up those moments of connectivity, that's when we're able to feel like we are really in that web with everyone else around us, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah,
So
yeah.
beautiful. I love this spiritual way. I love that whole concept. It so resonates. I love this. Now, I know that a lot of the work you do, even though you said it's not only what you do, is supporting people who've had people, pass and grieving that. And that is something that none of us on this planet can avoid, losing someone or something important in our lives. So, what perspective or words of wisdom do you have that can really offer support right now to anyone listening who's grieving the loss of a loved one?
It's a great question. And I know that, as simple as this sounds, just being a medium and knowing this truth that we are never alone, and that when we leave this human experience behind, we transcend and we
Mm.
go back home, we go back to our heaven space as well. And I know for sure that our loved ones in spirit, they absolutely want us to remember the good times of that connection. So the
Yes.
same way that I was explaining before about how we all can take that mental blueprint, or that mental shot of that energy, we don't always realize how simple our connection is to spirit. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is, when someone's having the memory of their dad laughing in their mind, and it just seems from them, oh, it's a memory. I'm having a memory right now. But
Yeah.
not really understanding that the other side, that's how they work. Mind
Mm,
to mind, energy to energy. What
yeah.
what about thinking about if that soul actually put that memory into your awareness to give you that gift as well? So
Mm,
I would really encourage everyone as they go on throughout their day, and I know how heavy grief can be, I really do. But
mm,
we all have these moments when we are disconnected from it, even just for a moment in time. And
yes.
when we're disconnected from it, maybe on our walk or even taking a shower, something where we're not focusing on it as intently, that's when spirit has the ability to get through to us. So
Mm.
I really would encourage everyone to be aware of the thoughts that they're thinking, and especially the thoughts that are lifting them up as well, and to take
Yeah.
that as a gift from their loved ones.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful nuance and a way to look at it because a lot of people hear often that, yeah, just think of all the good memories. And, we're told this a lot when we're grieving. But to think of it in a way with the perspective of this is your loved ones gifting you in this moment, this memory. They're holding that with you and enjoying the moment of that with you. It's such a beautiful, I mean, I got chills when you said that. It's like such a beautiful way to look at it. So I hope that people can take that little extra layer that it's not just think of all the nice memories, which is great too, but imagine that they're just in that space now. Remember when and you were having that conversation? Remember, grandson, when we went fishing or whatever. And those memories are so beautiful from that perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
It's just having that extra awareness of it, and I think that that extra awareness just shows us
Yeah.
how much of a gift it is to be in this space right now, and something too that my guides remind me of daily is that this life is fleeting,
Mhm.
no one's getting out of here alive. And so
Yeah. Yes.
give it in that context, and that within your short human experience that you have here, if you go within and you utilize what is natural and innate to you, life can be really eye-opening, and it can be
Mm.
with
Yeah.
how, with how you connect the dots and you connect the
Yeah.
synchronicities and you connect the love. We're here to feel our way through life, and
Yeah.
that's enough. And to know that on the flip side of that, that we all go back home at some point together as well, and we all make up that beautiful web of energy. It takes away that separation again, and I think that the separation, the feeling of separation, is really what fuels that grief, because
Yeah.
it allows us to go deep within that ego space.
Yes.
And we all have to go there. We all have to live there, on this journey. But it's the extent of how long we live there that really is our control.
Yeah, and I think it puts an interesting spin on what you said earlier, which is it's for our survival, right? We're going through survival mode very often, it feels like, when we lose someone dear to us. And so all of those feelings, all of the anger and all the whatever five stages of grief that might exist in our conscious mind or ego mind it's like this is us going through survival of, that heartbreak. But there's so much beauty there. I just love that. It's kind of like connecting some dots from quite a few things that you've been saying today. So now, I also do a lot of shamanic work. A lot of the work I do is around the sound healing and shamanic practices. And I know that in one of the rituals that we use is, I mean, I call it soul energy release. Some people call it cutting cords. There's lots of different terms. But I'd love to know about the practice that you offer in your book, cutting cords to protect your energy boundaries. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this really goes down to utilizing our spiritual web. And I love to call upon Archangel Michael. He's the protector, and I
Mm,
like to visualize his sword, his mighty sword as well. So what I will do is, whether it be, in the morning before I work with people in this way, I will go within and visualize myself and just see what's feeling off for me today, what's pulling me down right now. And right in those moments, as soon as I keep questioning it, my higher self will show me the visual. So when I
mm,
question, what do I have to release today, I will feel a pull, usually in my solar plexus area, and then I will be drawn down too. And as soon as I ask, why is this there, instantly there'll be something associated with it where it might be like the face of someone that I saw at the store the day before, or something
Yeah.
along those lines that's connecting to me. So I will set the intention to have everything that's not my own be cleared away from me, and I'll call upon my source, Michael, and I'll have him slice those energy cords that are not serving me in that moment.
Mm.
um, Something else that I do too to take it to the next level is, after I'm done with that, and I will protect myself, I will surround myself in this ball of white light. It's always my go-to, that force field of energy.
Yeah.
And I will visualize that sphere being mirrored. So anything that touches it gets reflected off of it back to its source.
Right. Right.
And
Oh,
I will make a statement like, I lovingly send everything that's not mine back to its sender for the
yeah.
highest good of all. So
Yes.
cord cutting, releasing energy that no longer serves us. It's really powerful once we understand how much it affects us in our everyday lives, because I don't think people really truly understand that when they're being bogged down by something, or they're in a really low space and they don't know why. The other flip side to that is, it's not yours.
Yes.
The energy is not yours. You
Yeah.
don't have you don't have to hold on to
Hold
it.
it. Yeah.
And so when you're aware of that and you think, oh my gosh, this is not mine, even within that liberation too, you are shaking the energy off of you. And that's,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and that's why going within, doing that inner work is so important, because it shows you how we're all connected, but it also shows you how you can thrive in the world around you when you take stock of your energy. And when,
Yes.
when you really understand and you're able to feel your unique energetic signature of who you
Yes.
are,
Yes.
then you will realize when something's around you that's not yours, what you can do to clear it.
Yes, that's beautiful. And I think it's really important to just to point this out, because a lot of it's what I do as well. It's not just cutting the cords, as you said, but it's lovingly releasing the energy back to its sender or wherever it came from. And that loving release for me is so beautiful, because it feels like that's just being sent with a dose of compassion. Here's a little dose of love. We're on its way back to you. But yes, it's not for you, it's not for me, and there you go. I just think that's so beautiful.
And
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and something that I use daily too, or maybe not daily, but when I need to, is, we all have people that challenge us, here in
Sure.
this life, or we may have had someone that wronged us too, that we had to forgive, and
Yes.
and I
Yes.
have certain people be like, well, don't you hate them because of that? And my response is, that's a four-letter word that I don't use in my vocabulary. So
Neither
I
do I.
but just for this purpose, what I do is, if I'm feeling triggered by something from my past, whether it be someone that I felt like there was an unjust situation that happened, and
Yes.
of course, the ego part of myself wants to, like, send these daggers, because that's
Yeah.
how we're sort of designed. But when I go within and just really focus on flooding that individual with so much light and so
Yeah.
much love that I can possibly conjure up, it also releases me again from that way of thinking. And
Yes.
I also feel too, it does send energy to them in a way that is karmically connected too. So it's sort of something like, okay, in me giving you back this light right now, I am setting the intention for whatever karmic, debt that has to take place
Hmm.
and organically as well. And I also find too that when I send that love back, that's the love that I'm receiving myself.
Yes.
So if
Yeah.
if if we think about everything that we slingshot outside of ourselves, we're going to experience it again, because that's how
Yeah.
powerful we are. We are those powerful creators.
Yes.
Want to encourage everyone listening right now, send love. Even if every ounce of your being is telling you that why you should not, or how unjust the situation is, go within your all-knowing place that knows only that vibration and knows only that space, and utilize it. That is going to help you on your
Mm.
It just is.
I so love this. It's so the way I think about it. And I also think there's the other part of that is, as you talk about forgiveness, it's freeing you, right? It's freeing you, but also realizing again, if we're not separate, then what you're doing is offering, as you said, love to yourself. And I often go into gratitude in moments where I am in that space too, because I just go, thank you for being such a dramatic catalyst for my growth. There's something that touched me, so it's mine. Otherwise, it wouldn't have touched me and it would have bounced off. But if it touched me, there's some kind of sore still that I need to look at, and that's mine. So thank you for being such an amazing catalyst. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. And I'd go away and work on whatever it is that touched me. And again, coming back to inner child, it tends to stem from those moments, right? So
It does. And I learned this truth a long time ago. And it was one thing that I didn't really want to accept when I learned it because it just like didn't make sense to me. But basically it was this knowing that everyone's a reflection of ourselves that we are encountering, and so
yes.
to think of it this way, there's something that really irks you about someone, maybe it's a colleague or maybe it's someone like a friend of a friend. And it's something that when they do it around you, it just makes you go crazy.
Mm,
To think of it in a different term of what within me is this reflecting right now? Why is this triggering me so much?
yes, exactly.
Going back to your energy source, why is this affecting me so much? Your feelings are there for a reason.
Yeah, yeah,
And so knowing that we are merely reflecting our experience and reflecting who's a part of that experience, it also allows us to take ownership as well for what we're
mm,
allowing ourselves to think and feel and vibrate at.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
and I really believe that our higher self or our intuitive self, accessing that intuitive self, it all happens in the split fraction of a second. It
Mhm.
happens in the split fraction of a second when you leave the rational way of thinking behind and you enter this sort of unlimited way of thinking, all knowing way of thinking. It's that feeling of hope and inspiration, that people will experience in many facets of their life. They might read a really great book that makes them feel this euphoria or it makes them feel unlimited in
Yeah.
that connection. And then it's a matter of knowing that within that split second, you have the opportunity to tune in, but if you allow your ego space, your ego mind to sort of debunk what you're receiving, it will, and it
Yes.
will it will pull you back into that sphere of cycle. So I always try to show people that that's why it's so important when you're receiving intuitive information or you're connecting with spirit, or you're having a vision, when it happens simultaneously and it happens just out of the blue, to trust it, to really take
Mhm.
stock of it, and to know that it's that fraction of a second that is a truth being revealed to you as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
So for anyone who's listening, who's maybe questioning or thinking, well, how can I trust my intuition more? It's just that it's trusting every time that
Yeah.
comes to you unexpectedly. And
Yes.
I think that a really good tool to build trust is to have a journal or something that you can document your impressions in.
Yes.
Because we live in a world that's not, it's not dictated by time or space. There's this illusion that we're living in a world that's linear and it's linked to like calendars and events
Yeah.
and time, and it's not. So when we are able to imprint what we're receiving and then looking back on it, maybe a few weeks from now, maybe a few months from now, maybe a few years from now too, we're receiving the validation that
Mm.
we are experiencing in those moments of connection. And
Yes.
that itself can be very life changing for someone who is doubting their intuition a lot or is doubting what they're feeling about a person.
Yeah, I think that's great. And when I train people to be sound healers, there's obviously the science to back everything up, but there's the intuitive part that you teach as well. And one of the things that I found pretty helpful for me when I was I suppose mostly in learning officially with the sound healing practices many years ago, because I always felt like I had a pretty decent relationship. But one of the things when all these magical things started to happen that I wasn't familiar with, there would be that voice coming up and saying, "Is this real? Is this really happening?" And I just reframed it to, "What if it is?" All this is information. It's not right, it's not wrong, we're not judging it, it's just coming through, and just trust it. And so this is what I know now, teaching other people to get in touch with their intuition, that doubts and things will creep in, but when you go into that relationship of trust, it's like you go into a relationship giving someone the benefit of the doubt that they'll be the person, that you'll be able to create the kind of relationship that you might communicate about. You don't go in hopefully going, "No, everything's going to go wrong," because then it most likely will. So I say just go in with that trust and just take it as information and trust it every time. And then again, the journaling is it's a really great way to have some evidence and validation for yourself.
Absolutely. And I know too that when people are embarking upon that intuitive journey, they're going to have to really choose to lean in away from the judgment, because that
Yes.
ego space is going to want to be in your head
Yeah.
very loudly, telling you, how crazy you are, or what are you
Mm,
doing, or it's just gonna
this ain't
it's
real.
it's gonna keep pulling you away from it. And
Yeah.
I find it's sort of like diving off of a diving board, so to speak, where I'm able to kind of just fine tune my concentration to the right voice in my head, and not
Yeah.
not the destructive voice that we all have a connection to,
Yeah.
and it happens so quickly. But it's one of those things that we have to be very much aware of
Of
when
course.
when we're in that space. That other voice coming from the other side of yourself is just a test to you, basically.
Hmm.
It's just there for you to be able to discern what's there and what's not, what's real and what's
What's
not real.
Yeah, yeah. That's so beautiful. I could talk to you for hours.
Same.
I can't believe the time is gone. But I just want to start by just saying thank you. Thank you for your presence. I really celebrate you and the work that you're doing to help people find peace and to heal and go through grieving, with ease and grace, and all the just amazing work that you do. Thank you for all of that. And well, before I go into my final question, just tell people where they can find you online, Bill.
Absolutely. So my website is just my name. It's billphillips.com with one
Brilliant.
and two P's, or you'll get somebody else, I always say.
Yes.
And they can also find me on social media as well. On
Fabulous.
Facebook, it's Psychic Medium Bill Phillips. Same with Instagram. And I do something called Daily Inspiration every day for my
Mhm.
audience, where I will go within and just post something that I feel is going to be really relevant to them in that moment, and
Amazing.
help them get through their day. So, yeah.
That's great. And I will, of course, put all of your links here in the show notes. So thank you for that. So I like to ask my guests this final question, and that is, what is your soulful sound to the world? A self prayer or desire that you wish upon the world?
I love it. My soulful prayer for the world is to know that we're all here to help each other evolve, and we're here to help each other through life. So my biggest prayer would be for people to answer that call when they feel guided to, and to operate from that way of being, from that space of love that we all have access to make the world a better place.
Whew, I felt that. Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us today, and just so much love to you.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been a wonderful. I feel definitely filled up today
Oh,
equally. Thank you so
amazing.
much for your beautiful, loving presence.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to share it with your friends, and remember to subscribe. From my heart to yours, sending you love, healing, and sound wherever you are.